Hey guys, again, we're going to be looking at the federal court system again today. This time it is going to be really talking about the organization and what the federal court system itself looks like as opposed to just the judicial branch. And so first off, I want you to look at this quick graphic here. Is we have three different tiers of federal courts, and on the top of that is you'll notice the Supreme Court. Like I said in the last video, that's the top dog, the big poppy. Okay, this is the court of courts, right? This is the final say. Underneath that, we have the appeals court. And we'll talk about that. And finally, the kind of the basis is the U.S. districts courts. And so what you can see is obviously there are more district courts than there are appeals courts, which are more of than Supreme Courts. Okay. And so let's talk about each one of these kind of looks like so we get a better idea of that. So first, starting off with the U.S. district courts. Okay, what is their role? This is where trials are held, lawsuits begin. So this is like when somebody breaks a federal law, when they're a federal criminal, or when there's a lawsuit that requires a federal court. This is where it will go to. Okay, there are 94 of these in the United States, and each state has at least one. Okay, so they are spread out, so there's easy access to it. Really, I mean, you figure there's 50 states. There's almost the ability to have two in every state, but each state has at least one. These courts, these district courts, have what's called original jurisdiction, because this is where it begins. When you say the original, when you're talking about the OG, original gangsters, right? We're talking about the first. So this is what this is the courts that have the first jurisdiction, the original jurisdiction. Okay. And this you'll notice too is the only federal court that has witnesses and juries. As you go up that list, as you go up this little pyramid here, you won't see witnesses anymore. You won't see juries anymore. You won't see them trying to figure out the verdict of was this person guilty or innocent, really. What you'll end up seeing is them re-looking at what's happened. So this is where all the meat happens. This is where the nitty-gritty happens. This is where the trial really takes place. As we move up that list, we get to the U.S. appellate courts. Okay, appellate, holy cow, that's a crazy word. I've never heard of that before. Okay, so what does it do? It reviews cases that are appealed from the district court. Okay, so appealed looks a lot like appellate, right? We appeal what the district court ruling was. In other words, what we're doing is we're saying, we don't think this was right. My original court case down in the district court where the original case was, I don't think it was fair. I don't think that I got a fair trial. I don't think that it was right the way that it happened. So I'm requesting a change. I'm requesting that we review it, that we relook at it. Okay. And so what we're saying is appellate courts have, you're going to really get this, right? Has appellate jurisdiction, where district court has original jurisdiction. The appellate courts have appellate jurisdiction, meaning that they have the right to appeal what the district court says, or people can appeal their case there. Okay. We said that there's 94 district courts. There are 12 U.S. courts in the United courts of appeal in the United States. 12 appellate courts in the United States. And what's really the biggest difference here is these do not hold trials or hear from witnesses. All that we're doing is looking at what the district court ruled and how the court case went. Okay, and there are, like I said, are only 12 of these around the United States. And really, what happens is they're broken up into different what we call circuits. Okay, so you can see this little map here. You can see the different circuits. Circuits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, and you don't see 12. And what 12 is, it's in DC. And what ends up happening there is where we have things that deal with federal government and whatnot. That's mostly where that stuff will happen. And so we're broken up in these different zones. You can see that Minnesota's in the 8th Circuit. Okay. But how does this play out? Okay. So what's the process of appellate courts? What's the process of the appeal? There's a panel of judges, okay? There's 3 or more judges at least, and what they do is they review the case, they hear what happened at the case, they study the documents, they look at the transcript, they go through the whole ins and outs of what happened in your case or the case that's being appealed, and they listen to arguments. And what happens is after they've heard everything, after they've done their research, after they've dug in, they'll rule in one of three ways. Again, there's no jury. There's nobody to go out and deliberate and say, oh, yeah, they were guilty or innocent. That's not what we're doing. All that we're wondering was the case fair? Was the case that happened okay or not? And so after they look at all the things, they'll say, okay, here's one of three things. One, we're going to uphold the verdict. We're going to say, yeah, what they said down in the district court, your original court case, that was right. That was good. I don't see any problem with what just happened. And so you were found guilty. And that's the way it's staying. That's one option. The second option, they're going to reverse the decision. They're going to say, whoa, something terrible happened. This didn't go right at all. You were not given a fair case. This was completely wonky. You were found guilty. We're actually going to say, you know what? That's not right. You're innocent. You're free to go. We're not going to hold you anymore. The third thing that could happen is we're going to remand the case. And so a lot of times when you see that prefix re, you're going to do something again, right? And that's really what's going to happen. We're going to take a look at the case again. We're going to send it back to the lower court to be tried again. Maybe there's some little tweak that happened that, okay, yeah, that wasn't fair. We still want to hear the case, but let's give you the proper ability to do the case fairly. Let's make sure the case is, or the court trial is run fairly. So let's do it again. Okay. What they do in the appellate courts is they only rule on whether the original trial was fair and protected the person's rights. Again, it's not are you guilty or innocent. It's was the trial fair and did it protect the person's rights. All right. Finally, the top point of our pyramid is the Supreme Court. And so you ask, what does the Supreme Court even do? What is their role? Well, really what it is, that's the final appeals court. So we talked about the appellate court right before this, where they do appeals. When something is appealed, it goes to them, right? This is really an appellate court. They review lower court cases. So maybe you went to the district court and you were found guilty and you don't think that it was fair. So you went to the appellate court and you went to the Circuit 8 appellate court. And they're like, well, I don't think that there was really any problem there. And so they don't do anything. They uphold the verdict. And you're like, well, I still think that there wasn't something fair. Or maybe the appellate court wasn't fair. And so you can bring it to the Supreme Court after that. And you can tell them that you don't think that your rights were upheld. And so what they will do is they will ask the question, did the decision violate the U.S. Constitution? That is their big question. That is really all that they deal with is, did the decision violate the U.S. Constitution? And if it did, then you're going to win the case. If it did not, you're going to see that verdict is upheld. But this is such a critical court because this really can establish a lot of things that we see happen in our country, such as what happened, I just think off the top of my head, a few years ago with gay rights. You think about same-sex marriage, and there was a court case that said that it was the people's right to get married. And so it became federal law because it went to the Supreme Court and they said that people have the right to get married to the same sex people. All right. And so the U.S. Supreme Court asked questions, did the decision violate the U.S. Constitution? Right. And if it did, things might get changed. All right. Lastly, let's talk about these judges that are in these positions, okay? And so the big question first is, how are they appointed? How do they get to be a federal judge? And really how it happens is the president tells them, you're going to be a judge. I want you to be a judge. But what happens isn't just the president just saying, you're a judge, go for it. After they appoint somebody, the Senate has to approve them. And some of you might have seen what has happened recently in the news. We have Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was a Supreme Court justice, and she just passed away. And so we just confirmed a new Supreme Court justice, Amy Coney Barrett. And so she is our newest Supreme Court justice. And it wasn't just that President Trump said, "You're Supreme Court justice now." She had to go and have a hearing in front of the Senate, and they had to approve of her, which they did. And so it's presidential appointment, but also the Senate has to approve them. And so how long can they be in power? How long is a term for a Supreme Court justice? Life. If you're put in position of a justice at 20 years old, you could be on it for 80 years. If you're put on as a 75-year-old, you might be a few years, but you're still there. There's no term limit, and the only way they can be removed is by impeachment, by finding wrongdoing and process through Congress to get rid of you. Of course, you can resign if you want to as well. Finally, how many do we have? Well, in district courts, there are at least 2 judges per district court, okay? We're talking 94 courts, so you're talking at least 188. I got 188. Oh my gosh, 188, all right? At least 188. Appeals courts have between 3 to 27 judges per court. And then finally, the Supreme Court has 9 justices. And of course, you want to have an odd number because it avoids ties. All right, and so that's our structure for the federal court system. Let me know if you have any questions. All right.